In our leading story, South African government has condemned any form of traditional or myth-related killings of people living with albinism. Arts and Culture Minister Nathi Mthethwa has made the call in a national event held in Witbank. This as the world marks Albinism Awareness Day today. This year's theme is Shining Our Light to the World. And the aim is to put an end to discrimination, stigma and attacks against people with albinism. It also aims to boost their self-confidence. Africa is one of the continents experiencing the most killings of people living with albinism. The day was proclaimed by the United Nations in 2014.
Every year on the 13th of June, we should observe this day. It's an important day. Namhlanje ke okulonyaka, the theme for this year on this day is shining our light to the world. This is the light from people with albinism. International Albinism Awareness Day is an opportunity to declare solidarity with people with albinism and strive together so those who are often left behind are able to live free from discrimination, from fear. There is a young man who was buried in Pinar. These myths fanele sisho bantu bakithi ukuthi lezi zinto ezishiwoyo ngabantu with albinism azikho. Into yokuthi abangcwatshwa bayanyamalala azikho. Uxolani Mkhize ongcwatshiwe nje ene albinism engcwatshwa ePinar khona la eMpumalanga bahamba bayomgubha bamkhipha ngoba bethi bazothola umuthi ngomzimba wakhe. Now we can't be this kind of society. This is not us.
Earlier in the day, we spoke to a young woman living with albinism.
It is mostly believed that people with albinism have luck, and that by using their skin, like you can, if you have businesses and stuff, you can gain, your businesses can grow through skinning people with albinism, taking their skin or some of their body parts. Also, that people with albinism, if you have a child with albinism, it is a curse.
Well, joining us in the studio to discuss this further is Ms. Nomasonto Mazibuko, the Commissioner of the Albinism Society of South Africa, and Mr. Mdimande Ngwenya, who is a part of the SA Healers Association and is himself a traditional leader. A very good evening to you both, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers.
Let's just talk about the event that took place today. I know that you were there. We saw a clip of the Minister attending it earlier on. How would you rate the success or the impact of such an event?
The event that we had today in Hlalani in Mpumalanga Witbank was a success. Firstly, let me say to the viewers that Kapsile Shabane was kidnapped and killed on the 28th of January. Still up to today, we cannot bury Kapsile and his Kosikona Ngwenya, because they are still getting the DNAs and still searching for the other body parts. And then we went to 2 schools where we planted 2 trees in memory of Kapsile and his the niece. And then 1 food tree was indigenous and the other one was a fruit tree. And we planted that tree. Minister Nathi Mthethwa and the mother to Kapsile planted the tree, and the police also participated, traditional healers also participated. The children themselves gave poems, and we were remembering Kapsile, and we're saying by planting these trees, we're giving hope to the people with albinism first, to the family of Kapsile, and the fruit tree We're saying it is now indigenous that we plant fruit trees. We planted a lemon tree to say as it blossoms, as it gives the fruit, we hope that people would know that as we're shining our light to the world, they must know that people with albinism are human. And the United Nations declared the 13th of June, and South Africa is a signatory. So the human rights of the people with albinism is very important.
Mm-hmm. Now, just a reminder to our viewers, our phone lines are open, so if you want to call in, give us your views, your comments. If you're also somebody living with albinism, join us and discuss this topic with us today. Our phone line is 011-542-1046. Now, to you, Mr. Mgwenya, you are actually a traditional healer yourself, and Ms. Nomasonto mentioned that traditional healers were a part of today's celebrations. Talk to us about the significance of traditional leaders understanding that albinos' body parts can't be used for muti. Dispel that myth for us.
Let me first start by saying we are all human beings. We are all made in the image of God, but not by the image of God, in the image of God. Whether you are an albino or you are just normal, we are all in the human, made by God in his humanity. We complete God. And then as we are getting in partnership with the Albinism Society, as to say, we are trying to distance ourselves as traditional healers, as the people of faith about the killings. And also, since 2015, we've started embarking in the road shows and public engagements to say to the communities, whoever is doing these things, it's out of the traditional healing sector. Probably it is the witchcraft sector, because I'm not a witch, but I'm a traditional healer. So I cannot be speaking for witchcraft. But however, this thing, it is associated with inhumanity, because you can never get rich at any point of time by using human body parts. Only animal fats and animal body parts, traditional healers that they can use to use as umuti, not human body parts. Yes.
And also, just hearing from the lady that we spoke to earlier on this morning, she spoke about when she was growing up, there was a period of Lindiwe, a period of time when she, I think about for 15 years, where they had a neighbor, who believed that somebody who has albinism is a sort of a good luck omen, and she felt somewhat harassed. She also felt a bit ashamed of being an albino. She felt depressed at some point in time. So for people that are living with albinism, what are some of the emotional support structures that are available to help you understand that it's just a condition, that your skin has no pigment, but you still are human like other people?
As the Albinism Society of South Africa, we give counseling to parents who have given birth to children with albinism. Lindiwe is one of the examples. She came to the organization when she was 9 months old, and I was very proud to see her confidence coming to the studio this morning, because she had fear. And as we went along, it takes time. Firstly, people who are pregnant, during the antenatal clinic, they are never told or reminded or made aware that there's a possibility of you getting a child who has a genetic condition, because albinism is a condition whereby you lack melanin, and both parents do have melanin. So it brings the information very distorted to say your child has albinism, and it comes with shock. And it becomes worse now when we see that traditional healers, Mtimande says, when the witches are saying the body parts of people with albinism are giving luck and can be used for various situations
and rituals. Well, we are joined by Temba, who's calling us from right here in Midrand in our neighborhood. A very good evening to you, Temba. Thank you so much for joining us here on Afro Prime. Just give us your thoughts or questions to the panel if you have any.
No, actually, it's just a comment that I just want to share. I just want to say thank you so much for having me. Really, this Albinism Day, we need really to respect this. And these are the people, and I really feel bad myself. I feel touched, actually. These are the people that we need to look to associate with them and take them like they're human beings, not killing them and saying with this myth like the Minister Nathi Mthethwa was saying, there's no you can make money out of these people. Even their skin, even their hair, whatever the thing that they're claiming about that they're going to give their business go stronger. It's really, really very bad. We need to take these people as part of our society and love them, because they're also contributing to this country, and some of them are genius. And these people are so intelligent, if I may say. So this day, definitely, we need really to respect it and honor it. And I urge all South Africans to say they must stop whatever they're thinking, killing of these people. I really feel touched about this, but I really support this day and say, let's refrain from all these meetings. That's what's happening around. Let's love these people and be with them as part of the South African people as well. That's all what I wanted to hear. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you very much, Atemba. We are joined now by Ayanda, who's calling us from Durban. Ayanda, good evening to you. Thank you for calling us. So just to talk to us about your thoughts or contribution to the conversation.
Yeah, good evening. My view on the albino day is that most of them are not people of albino are really stigmatized in society. And I do salute South Africa for the effort they are putting through to incorporate the people of albino into the main societal stream. However, I really want to touch on what the albino woman on your studio said. Let's get the root of albino. How does albino come to existence? So I think that the medical aspect needs to really come on board to educate the public that no, people with albino, it's not just by their choice, just by the condition beyond their parents' control. That is why albino come. But at least the society will be informed how even albino really in the first place come into the existence. Because I do believe that it's not people with albino who give birth to albino. Some people who are not albino really give birth to albino. So where is the cause? Let's start from the cause and let the people know that albino is not a case. For that matter, it is a gift from God, and we must accept that and live with that. Thank you.
Anna, thank you very much for that contribution. She's actually mentioning a very important factor involving the medical fraternity, because you mentioned that sometimes when women are pregnant, they're not actually prepared that, there is a possibility that this congenital condition might actually occur in your child. So in hospitals, has the organization begun to maybe work with some of the nursing staff to say, look, if someone gives birth to a child who has albinism, these are the steps to take, but if you can't handle it, hand over the case to us?
Yes, we are working very closely with the clinics and the hospitals around the country. What we have done, we usually have a campaign where we visit clinics and hospitals and put our pamphlets there. And we interact with pediatricians, we interact with the midwives to say, during their antenatal clinics, we go there and lecture, because during antenatal, there is time to check for your HIV status, your high blood pressure, your sugar diabetes. And now we are advocating that please check where we go together with Autism South Africa, Down syndrome, because all these conditions are genetic.
Yes. Well, we are also joined in studio now by Mr. Zolani Mkiva, the Controlesa General Secretary. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's hear your voice on this conversation.
Well, as the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, we condemn the misrepresentation of our culture or things that are barbaric which are done in the name of our culture. We think it is totally unacceptable and un-African for the so-called traditional healers, because I would call them, particularly those who do such things, that they are not recognized as traditional healers in our society. We reject that thing that they do with the scorn that it deserves, and we think it is totally unacceptable. And we are happy that the society is standing up and rising up against this, because it's unheard of that people would do this. These are people who are part and parcel of our families, they are part and parcel of our blood. They are our children, they are our mothers, they are our uncles, they are everything to us. So they cannot be isolated and be treated with this kind of disdain. And I think that the government must come very harsh and hard on everyone who is doing something like this. This is criminal. It's barbarism, for the lack of the better word to use.
Well, we are joined also by Vusi, who's calling us from Davidton, I believe. Vusi, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us here on Afro Prime Time. Just give us your thoughts.
Hello.
Hello, Vusi, we can hear you. You can speak to us.
Yes, really, just to say, those people who... hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Vusi, please continue.
Okay. lento ngayisho ukuthi siyabonga labantu laba bayize ngale institution ukuthi bazimele namhlanje. You understand? Because what is happening, people, they lack information, people, they need to be educated about the whole thing. Because like, it seems like they misunderstand the whole thing because of their cultures and among our.
Yes, we do get you, Vusi. Thank you very much for that. Information is actually a very key part of dispelling a lot of these myths. And just speaking about information, as a traditional leader, do you find any people who come to you for consultations who themselves believe that, you know, if I come to you and say, please give me the skin of a person that will be albinism, I'll get, you know, more prosperous in my business? Do you get people that actually come to you with those myths where you actually yourself have to dispel them?
I come across with them on my daily lives. And not also only in my practice, but also at church. Because like we have seen the issue, yes, Mangozi, the child that was killed, Utandazile, Umfundisi, the reverend was involved there. So people also, business people, they also believe Uti, getting the skin of an albino will make you rich. If that was the case, all people who living with albinism should be billionaires today. So we try and educate and engage with them on a daily basis that there is no way, and I'm still repeating this, there is no way. If you want to get rich, you just need to work hard as early as possible.
And you're just speaking about, if you can just talk to us about something that came to light earlier on today, is the idea that if you don't have pigment in your skin, you might be a bit sensitive to light. And oftentimes people that live with albinism have to wear maybe extra sunscreen. They tend to want to wear caps or sunglasses. And maybe you find that as children growing up, you don't understand why your friend's always wearing a cap or always wearing a hat, you know, or sunglasses, or can't play with you outside the way that you want them to play with you outside. Can the society, the school's rules also accommodate, you know, the protection?
The Albinism Society, as I said, we have programs. At the beginning of, from January to March, we have the school campaign where we go to schools. And from time when the child is born, we educate the families to say the child must not play in the sun between 11 and 3. Then the child can play when the sun is not very harsh. And at the schools, most of the schools now allow their, from pre-grade, allow their children to have hats because the sun is very harsh. And then what is very important that we have a dignity pack where the social development gives us a dignity pack with sunscreen, a lip balm, and a toothpaste, and all those cosmetics that are in it. Because in this country, sunscreen is still cosmetic, and it's very expensive. So we explain to parents, to children with albinism themselves as they grow, to say, wear long sleeve clothing, don't play in the sun, and we coerce their friends to say, come and play with Nomansonto in the land, in the shade. And we say there are indoor games where people with albinism can partake. And if you see Boris Becker also has sunscreen, but he's a famous tennis player.
Yes.
And the cricket people, they even put the sunscreen very, very thick on their faces to say sunscreen is key to us. It is a prerequisite. I usually say to the young people, never leave home without your sunscreen.
We actually have a final caller on the phone line, Sydney, calling us all the way from Bela Bela. A very good evening to you, Sydney. Thank you for joining us. What's your question or contribution?
Now, I want to share the view concern. My concern here is that in South Africa, we have various organizations. Now, even that traditional healers organization, the most doers, as we believe, for these killings, because our most belief was that if you fight a tree, if you want the tree to die, you must dig it from the root. Now the doers, as we believe, are the traditional healers. Why are we not organizing them? The organizers of these traditional healers must be called to make an end to this killing of our beloved brothers and sisters. So that is my concern, that when they are absent, we can't do anything without them. But we must start to calling them and relying with the organizations of traditional healers to rally all around, to look around who are those perpetrators who are doing innocent to our innocent brothers and sisters.
Well, Sydney, maybe you missed the introduction of the guests, but we do actually have representatives of the traditional healing fraternity here in studio. And maybe let me just let you answer, Sydney.
Sydney, what I can say is that that is why we are here. I'm representing the traditional healing sector. We are trying to distance ourselves as traditional healers. That is why we are here. We are working in partnership with the albinism awareness, with the albinism society since 2015.
And just speaking to you, if I can just bring you in as well, what else is Controlesa planning for this year? I mean, we have a day like today, it's an international day, but what happens the other 360-something odd days of the year?
Yes. We have taken a decision in the recent National Executive Committee meeting of Controlesa to actually meet all the organizations of traditional healers so that we can meet with them. We believe that given these circumstances, we need to have regulation and a regulatory framework so that anybody who is found to be doing this, then that person is declared a non-traditional healer for good. And not only this, and other bad practices which people say they help people with this or that, all of these things that are shenanigans and myths which are misleading and end up, leading to deaths of our people in our community. So as Controlesa, before the end of the year, we're going to meet all the organizations of healers in all respective provinces and ensure that we converse with them and convince them that there is a need for regulation. As long as that regulatory framework is influenced by us as Africans in order to accommodate what we want to see happening and not what we want to see happening, then I think we will all be in agreement. Because what is happening is that everybody is doing as he wishes out there, and it leads to this kind of situation. And we want to do away as well with this notion that consulting traditional healers must only be an issue that is done in the evening, because that's a colonial and a historical issue. People must be free to go and consult credible traditional leaders during the day. It's not a night issue. These are healers. These are health practitioners. So they ought to be consulted in broad daylight. Gone are the days when the people of European origin referred to us as savages, and therefore our practices were relegated in the background. Hence, you have people doing these things behind the scene. Let traditional healers be seen practicing their practices openly so that we can then critique them, so that we can pick up all the negatives and throw them away. So similarly, when we meet with them, we'll be convincing them that there is a need for regulation, and it is not a colonial measure. It is a measure that is intended to cleanse the sector of traditional healing from these dirty things that are happening in our society.
So, Mtimanda, Zonani just mentioned regulation. Do you think that it's important to involve the government's legislative arm in the regulation tabling and make it a criminal offense, to do certain things that are against the regulation framework that you'll be coming up with? We don't have a problem with that. Department of Health has engaged us since December 2015. But the problem that we are having, it's the way the regulations were imposed to us. That's the very problem. But I think now as Controlesa, it's coming into the picture as the people of tradition also. I think they would understand better where we are coming from and where we are sitting from, because there is no sector that can function well without being regulated. Because all this, you see, all these bad people, they come within our skin because our sector is not regulated. That is why you cannot be able to differentiate between the witch and the healer. Yes. Yes. They are called regulation is key. By the same name, so the regulation will actually be key in defining.
That he is making. One, it is true that it is not people who are sitting in Pretoria who must develop pieces of policy and regulation. Let that come from the grassroots, and then it is embraced by government. Because when it comes from the top, it becomes a top-down approach, then it gets rejected. As Controlesa, we are going to help to see to it that this thing talks to our culture, it talks to our nuances as a people, and therefore it should be easily be embraced by traditional healers without any problem, and then bring in government and say, this is the way to go.
Well, thank you very much to our panelists for joining us today. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you to our callers as well for joining in the conversation. But the conversation does continue even off air. You can follow us at Afro Worldview and tweet us your comments as well as some of the questions and contributions you want to make to this conversation. It is time now for a short break, but do stay tuned for more news and updates.